If I were pressed, I might say that Nothing Gold Can Stay is my very favorite poem. It's up there for two reasons. The first reason is that I read The Outsiders. And like almost everyone else, that book really got to me. And this poem by Robert Frost is a really important part about how that book ends. I suppose it was an early step in understanding the power of poetry. The second reason I love this poem is because I used to live in Alberta. If you don't know about Alberta, it's in Canada and it's cold in the winter. It's frozen for months. When I lived there, I spent a lot of time outside, hunting big game. During those long, cold winter months, there's not much color in nature. Everything is the color of snow or dirt, dormant trees and dead grass. But then there comes a day in spring when you notice that the trees are glowing. The buds have opened just a little and the new green leaves have come out just far enough to give the tree that glow, that green sheen. And it's startling because it's so different than what you've been looking at for months and months. Every time, it's an amazing moment. This poem, Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost, is about that moment. Let me read it to you. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief, so dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay. These 8 lines are packed with all kinds of literary devices and techniques interacting with each other. And I want to point out some of these. But I really hope that you don't miss out on the beauty of the thing. The first line, nature's first green is gold. Green is gold? That's a paradox, because green is not gold. It's green. But wait, gold doesn't mean the color. Gold means precious, rare, valuable, beautiful. Nature's first green is gold. And in that line we have metaphor and alliteration as well. But what's so cool about great poets is they can pack all these things in there and you hardly notice them. They don't bog down the lines. And I think that's awesome. Her hardest hue to hold. This line has personification and alliteration. But consider the effect of these. It seems that nature would really like to hold on to this particular green, but she cannot. The H sound that is repeated is all breath. And the green that is hard to hold is hard to hold like it's hard to hold breath. It's a puff of air. Her early leaf's a flower. The early leaf, the one that's that special green, that's a flower. It's a metaphor that says that the early leaf is lovely and delicate and transient or temporary, like a flower is. But only so an hour. This green lasts only an hour. That doesn't mean a literal hour, but a very short time. Note also the long vowel sounds in this line. Long vowel sounds can slow down a line and make it more somber. Long vowel sounds dominate this whole poem, and they contribute to the wistful tone. Then leaf subsides to leaf. The first leaf in this line is not the same as the second leaf in this line. The first leaf is nature's first green, the one that is gold and hard to hold, the one that's a flower. The second is an ordinary leaf, the ones that we see on the trees all summer. To describe the transition from the first to the second leaf, Frost uses the words subsides, and then later sank and down. Each of these words is about a decrease or a diminishing. In this line, the first green diminishes to another kind of inferior green. He compares this step that the leaves make to the one that humanity took when they disobeyed God and lost Eden. So Eden sank to grief. And then he compares this step to the movement from dawn to day. So dawn goes down to day. Dawn is more precious and special and beautiful than the rest of the day. Notice all the alliteration in that line, all the D sounds. The alliteration in the poem shows the downward movement where all the H sounds are airy and elusive and transcendent. The D sounds are heavy and earthy. And then the poem concludes, nothing gold can stay. I love the structure of this poem in its 8 lines. Just look at the first words of each line. Nature's her, but then so, nothing. You can see the whole argument of the poem through these first words. You can also see that the second half of the poem mirrors the first. The hinge is the middle with the but then lines. Imagine folding the poem in half on that hinge. A few interesting things line up. The poem starts with the word nature and it ends with the word nothing. And these words come together. The term gold is in the first and last line as well. In the first, it's special, and in the last, it's fleeting. Look at the second line and the second last line. Both of those have a lot of alliteration. In the first, it's that elusive H like we talked about. And in the last, it's that heavy earthbound sound. I love this poem because it's true. There are a lot of wonderful, magical things in the world and in our lives. Gold things, other than early leaves and dawn, but none of them stay. They are all fleeting, all diminishing. Need an example? I used to look like this, and now I look like this. None of these wonderful things stick around, and their loss is part of the human condition. And so we are caught between our joy of experiencing them and our lament at the loss of them. Every spring, even here in BC where it never stops being green, there is a day when a new special green glows along the roads and up the hills. And on that day, I always recite this poem. And I celebrate that the first green exists at all, and feel a little sad that we're bound to lose it soon. But is there something encouraging in the fact that it does keep coming back? Thank you, and we'll see you next time.